Good evening. You're watching the News at 6 with me, Ishan Russell. The News at 6 is all about the day's biggest developing stories, and we'll be filling in on them over the next half hour. But first, the headlines we're tracking right now. Ahead of the monsoon session of Parliament, the war of words rages between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Congress Vice President Rahul Gandhi. CBI steps up probe into Vyapam scam. 3 more FIRs registered. BJP suspends leader named in the case. The Department of Telecom's panel report on net neutrality sparks debate. Left asked the government to ensure that customers are not discriminated against. And 4 US Marines killed in a shooting rampage started by a lone gunman. Officials call it an act of domestic terror. The top story this evening, the CBI today filed 3 fresh FIRs in the Madhya Pradesh Vyapam scam, assuring stepped-up measures to come to the bottom of the series of suspicious deaths that have come to light around the scam. Now, the BJP suspended one of its leaders, in fact, accused in the scam, even as it emerges that many accused were let off the hook as the FTF that was probing the case overlooked irregularities.
Medical student Namrata Damore's body was found near the railway track in Ujjain in 2012. Her post-mortem report said she died of asphyxia and smothering. The state government had called it a case of suicide. Damore's death was one of 3 FIRs filed by the CBI on Friday as it looks to step up its probe into the Vyapam scam. The agency has filed 8 FIRs in the case so far.
That we are registering the cases. This is a time-taking process. हम cases register करते चल रहे हैं और investigation भी पूरी तरह से करते चलेंगे और हमारी investigation की जो reports होंगी वो honorable courts में होंगी और I'm confident कि हम people की expectations पे, courts के expectations पे will be coming true.
Meanwhile, the BJP suspended Madhya Pradesh Backward Class Commission member and leader Gulab Singh Kirar, who is named as an accused along with his son in the Vyapam scam. The CBI filed an FIR against him earlier this week. Kirar has been untraceable since the scam was exposed. The Madhya Pradesh BJP says it respects the direction of the CBI probe.
जो प्रक्रिया है वो अपना काम कर रही है और समय आने पर सब चीजें होंगी. देखिए बीजेपी के सदस्य भी वो नहीं रहेंगे और जिस पद पे वो बैठे हैं वहां भी नहीं रहेंगे.
The Congress, however, attacked the BJP for not taking action earlier.
जब सीबीआई जांच कर रही है तो एक फेस सेविंग के लिए उन्हें बर्खास्त किया गया. नहीं तो 2014 में जब किसी व्यक्ति पे एफआईआर दर्ज होती है अब तक उन पे क्यों नहीं कार्रवाई हुई, ये कोई प्रदेश सरकार से पूछे.
On Monday, the Supreme Court will hear a CBI plea asking that the SIT be allowed to file charge sheets in the Vyapam scam cases as and when it closes the probe into each case, an effort to ensure that accused don't get away with statutory bail. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha Television.
Now on to our focus story for this evening. The Department of Telecom panel has submitted its final report, in fact, on the net neutrality issue. The report bats for an open and unregulated regime for several over-the-top services. Here's our detailed report on this.
If you use voice-over internet protocol applications like WhatsApp, Google Chat, Vibe and Skype for making local, national or international calls, then you may have to shell out money. A suggestion suggested by the DOT panel proposed a regulation on the service. The panel, however, recommended that user rights on the internet need to be ensured so that telecom service providers and internet service providers do not restrict the ability of the user to send, receive, display, use, post any legal content, application or service on the internet, or restrict any kind of lawful internet activity or use. The Telecom Minister, however, clarified that the report is not the official position of the Telecom Department.
It is the report of the committee of officials which are constituted to give me an overview of what is the whole scenario of net neutrality and what is the way forward. This report has come in public domain. A copy of this report has also been sent to TRAI. As I had told the Parliament, I will await the TRAI report and thereafter the government will take a very considered view in the Ministry of Telecommunication and also the Cabinet.
Here are a few key points of the DOT report. The panel proposed that voice calls provided by WhatsApp, Viber, Google Chat and Skype may be charged separately. It recommended no extra charges for using social media services like Facebook, Twitter and YouTube. Refrained from giving any view on zero rating, leaving the decision making with sector regulator TRAI. It said issues ranging from traffic management to security and integrity of networks, sometimes it could be a legitimate requirement, but companies should not resort to application-specific control. The panel criticized Facebook's initiative Internet.org and declared that Facebook was violating net neutrality by playing the role of a gatekeeper in determining which websites were in the list. Cyber law expert Pawan Duggal said the recommendations favored net neutrality on part of service providers or telecom operators.
These particular recommendations are particularly important because it recognizes that these principles must be tested time and again in the context of the new kind of offerings and services that will be offered by these service providers.
The left parties today asked the centre to ensure that internet users were not discriminated against. The CPI said it will take up the issue in the upcoming monsoon session of Parliament. Net neutrality refers to the concept that all websites on the internet are treated equally. Bureau Report for Rajya Sabha Television.
And Ravi Viswasvarya Sharda Prasad, a telecom expert, now joins us to help us understand. Ravi, this is not binding on the government. This is not the government's official position. So as far as net being completely neutral in India, I mean, we will still stick to what has already been happening. And things like what the committee and the panel also pointed out as far as Facebook itself is concerned, the Internet.org initiative. All those things would be put on the back burner over here in India, or do you think that the debate would rage on nonetheless?
Well, there is a lot of confusion because there are three distinct issues which are being confused with each other. One is the regulation of OTT, what are called over-the-top players, which are like Skype, Viber, Hike, and others, which are called over-the-top players applications. The second is the concept of zero rating, where certain websites, certain content providers will pay the internet service provider or the cellular service providers for the consumers to access their websites. And the third is the concept of net neutrality. So there's a lot of these three concepts are being mixed up together in this, and a lot of the confusion is deliberate. Because all the players here, both the proponents of net neutrality and the opponents of net neutrality, are politically have a lot of clout, a lot of money power is at stake, and it's in their interest to kind of confuse things. There are a multiplicity of committees in this, which is also deliberate. Now, the Department of Telecommunications Committee has given its view, which is not binding on the government. Later on, the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, the TRAI, will give its view, which again, the government is not bound to accept. But if the government does not accept the TRAI's recommendation, then it has to give in writing, in a time-bound manner, it has to give in writing why it does not accept the TRAI's recommendations and send it back to the TRAI to give a fresh set of recommendations. Then there are also the parliamentary committees which are looking into this.
Right.
So there are some very powerful interests which do not want any decision to be taken. And my view is that no matter what decision the government eventually takes, which will be a cabinet decision, it will be challenged in the TDSAT, the Telecom Dispute Settlement Tribunal. It will probably go into an appellate tribunal and then to the Supreme Court. Because there is so much at stake here for all the parties involved that I think no matter what decision the government takes in the end, it will end up in the Supreme Court.
All right. So as far as the concept itself is concerned, I mean, all the major players right now and the biggest companies in the world are companies that offer such services over the internet. So, of course, the stakes are huge. But as for you and me, the ordinary consumer, where do we stand in all this? Does anything change as far as net being neutral for us is concerned for now?
See, the net was never neutral. Now, what some of the concepts sound good in theory, excellent in theory, but are very difficult to implement in practice. One of the principles is that consumers should be able to access whatever content they want, whatever legal content they want, and there should not be any artificial barriers to their accessing such internet. There should not be any artificial throttling. Now, this is excellent in theory, but it's going to be very difficult in practice as a telecom engineer, I can tell you, to detect any, any deliberate throttling by a service provider, by a cellular service provider. It's going to be difficult. From an engineering point of view, you cannot build a network which treats all bits the same. A packet switch network which treats all bits the same will just not work at all. So you break it down to saying that, all right, videos, let's say video from one content provider should be treated the same as video from another content provider. Let's say Rajya Sabha TV's video should be treated the same as CNN, IBN's videos should be treated the same as Doordarshan's videos. Now, again, this sounds good in theory. It's going to be very difficult to implement, detect violations of this in practice, just because of the way the internet architecture is. Because the internet works on a kind of best effort basis. It doesn't. It's not like an orderly stream. In the old days, a packet of circuit switching, where all the bits were lined up in a queue. Right. The internet actually works. It's like a stampede. It's just kind of hordes of packets just go around in the general direction of the destination, but they jostle each other, they push each other, jostle each other for priority. So it's going to be very difficult to kind of implement something to implement equality in practice. You cannot. You won't be able to detect in real time violations of equality. So it's going to be very difficult. What is the point of passing legislation or passing rules which you're never going to be able to implement?
All right, so as far as that is concerned, so the legalities, of course, the legal implications for this certainly would be long, and it would be a long battle as far as that is concerned. And also the implementation of net neutrality, as you point out, would be very, very difficult. So indeed, this conversation we would be having very, very soon again. Ravi,
yes,
Suresh, Prasad, thank you very much for coming.
There are only very few countries that have net neutrality. There's Netherlands in Europe, and there's Mexico, Ecuador, Chile. That's it.
All right, so indeed, whether India joins that little list of countries or not, we'll have to we'll have to wait for the government stand to come out. But Ravi, thank you very much for coming in and helping us understand this issue a little better. Well, moving on now, the Medical Congress has indicated that drugs worth over $170 billion could lose patents in 2015. Now, this is expected to give a massive opportunity to the Indian pharma industry to make inroads into the global pharma market. Here's more.
Indian generic drug manufacturers are awaiting $170 billion upheaval in the pharma market. That's the size of the window that will open for them when big blockbuster drug patents expire later this year. Experts say it will not only help drug manufacturers in developing nations, but also make drugs more affordable all over.
The Indian companies will certainly benefit because now I'm talking about a huge market. 8% of the total market is now under patent. If those market is thrown open to the Indian companies will certainly benefit. And then ultimately the beneficiaries are going to be people who can get medicines at a cheaper price.
Blockbuster drugs are extremely popular drugs that generate revenues worth $1 billion and more. The Indian pharma industry garners much of its revenues from exports. It's looking forward to a combination of potential blockbusters and also products that could become niche busters for smaller populations.
2 years and now in the next 4-5 years, so in this period of about 6-7 years, many of these blockbuster medicines are going to come off patents or have already come off patents. Now that is of course an opportunity from Indian generic manufacturers to enter the global export market.
What they need to do is, the government has to do something about it. So either it can do a compulsory licensing where it can ask Indian companies, generic Indian companies, to produce these patented drugs.
Once the blockbusters lose patent protection, lower-priced generics are expected to decimate as much as 90% of innovator company sales. Big Pharma will need to look at new strategies to fill in gaps and even embrace the generic market model. Anshu Jaisingh's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
It was a face-off between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Congress Vice President Rahul Gandhi today. During a speech in Jammu today, the Prime Minister took a dig at the Congress for its culture of dynastic politics. Moments later, the Congress Vice President took a swipe at Modi for his 56-inch chest remark. Addressing party workers on the second day of his Rajasthan visit, Rahul said the farmers opposing the land bill will reduce the Prime Minister's 56-inch chest to 5.6 inches in just 6 months.
56 इंच की छाती 5.6 इंच छाती हो जाएगी 6 महीने में और 5.6 इंच कौन करेगा? कांग्रेस पार्टी, हिंदुस्तान की जनता, हिंदुस्तान का किसान, हिंदुस्तान का मजदूर।
कम्युनिस्ट पार्टी के नेता थे, भारतीय जनता पार्टी के घोर विरोध करने वाली उनकी विचारधारा थी, लेकिन सरकार बनने के दूसरे ही दिन फूल मालाएं पहनने का कार्यक्रम नहीं, आडवाणी जी को वहां भेजा गया था। ये सार्वजनिक जीवन की आवश्यकता होती है। सार्वजनिक जीवन में अब हम यहाँ मस्ती से बैठे हैं, लेकिन परसों देखना आप कैसा मुकाबला होता है.
Let's go across to our correspondent Vishal Daya, who's been tracking all these political developments. Vishal, once again, the monsoon session of Parliament is coming, and it seems that both the BJP and the Congress are at a collision course, aren't they?
Well, yes, and going by the statements which have come in from both the top leaders of the ruling as well as the opposition side, it is quite clear that neither the government nor the opposition will leave any stone unturned to put their points across. And it's quite interesting that just a few days before the session has to begin, even the Prime Minister seems to have acknowledged the fact through his statement in that public rally wherein he's saying that, please wait for a verbal duel or a contest on the floor of the House. It's a clear indication that the government is also mindful of the fact that the opposition has sort of, spruced up political, weaponry, and there are several issues on which the Congress, along with other, smaller parties, will try and corner the government. Now, there is no dearth of issues as far as the opposition is concerned. The land acquisition will obviously be at the center of this entire focus, but then there are others as well.
All right, Vishal, very quickly, if we can talk about the opposition bonhomie and whether that is already prevalent. We know that the Congress and the major the Hindi heartland parties like the RJD, the JDU will be contesting the Bihar elections together. In that sense, do we see a political bonhomie also coming into the monsoon session of Parliament, given the fact that, and also what about Rahul Gandhi? I mean, we've not heard him speak much earlier in Parliament, but last session at the end of it, when he came back to the country, he did speak out. Do we expect a more aggressive Rahul Gandhi in Parliament as well this time around?
Well, yes, that's what that's what at least Rahul Gandhi's colleagues in his party are expecting, that his 2.0 version will continue in this particular session as well. As far as the bonhomie between the Congress and other parties on the opposition benches are concerned, then the smaller regional parties will definitely pick and choose as it suits them, and a clear indication of that was visible in the iftar which was hosted by the Congress president just a few days back, wherein the entire Samajwadi Party, led by Mulayam Singh Yadav, was missing from the the iftar. Also, Mamata Banerjee did not make it. Lalu Prasad Yadav did not make it. But this cannot be interpreted in a way that all these are going to go along with the government. But it is going to be an issue-based sort of thing. There are several issues on which these regional sectors would like to try and score a point, try and point it out to their constituents way back in their states, that this is what we have put the government, NDA government led by Narendra Modi in a tough spot out there. So obviously it will be as and when required, they will join hands. But then for the government, it is definitely a problematic area, because they will be they're going to hit from at least all sides in this particular session.
Absolutely, Vishal Daya will be keeping a track of all these political developments for us. Thanks very much for coming in and helping us get the latest on that issue. Now, the RBI has advised the public, in fact, on that note, we'll take a quick break. On the other side, we'll talk about the RBI advising the public not to deface currency notes. More on that on the other side.
Cancer is becoming a very, very important disease of our country. It's not as rare as it used to be earlier. Brain happens to be the most challenging of them, and we don't still have answers to many of them.
Watch Eureka with Dr. Chitra Shorkar, neuropathologist at the All India Institute of Medical Sciences on Rajya Sabha television.
Welcome back. You're watching the news at 6. Now, amid the escalating border tensions between India and Pakistan, the US today expressed deep concern and asked both countries to bilaterally work their way through the situation. At the daily news briefing at the White House, U.S. State Department spokesperson John Kirby said the U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry is closely following the developments between India and Pakistan. There have been a series of ceasefire violations along the line of control in Jammu and Kashmir by Pakistan, which has resorted to mortar shelling of Indian areas over the past 2 days.
You are hopeful about the relations between the two countries?
Indeed, we are. We welcome the dialogue in UFA and next steps.
Now the story of the RBI's advisory, and the Reserve Bank has advised the public not to deface currency notes and in the watermark window of the banknotes as well. Although the RBI issued its clean note policy in 2001 and asked the public and bankers not to staple currency notes or scribble on the watermark portion. However, the implementation of a clean note policy still remains a distant dream.
The Reserve Bank of India has instructed banks to sort notes into reusables and non-usables and give only clean banknotes to the public. However, Indians, particularly businessmen and traders, are in the habit of scribbling their names or messages on the banknotes. And if you're one of them, then the Reserve Bank of India has a message for you. The RBI notification on Thursday says the watermark window has an important security feature that distinguishes it from a counterfeit note. The public is therefore requested to refrain from doing anything that leads to defacement.
Once you write on the watermark, then the sorting machine, which is counting the notes, identifies that particular brand, that particular note as counterfeit. Although it might be genuine, but by virtue of the fact that something is written on the watermark, it is branded as a counterfeit or fake by the counting machine.
The objective of the RBI's clean note policy is to give the citizens good quality currency notes and coins, even as soiled notes are taken out of circulation. It's almost 15 years since the policy was issued, but even now, 95% are not stapled, while the public and bankers continue to deface the watermark area. On an average, 1 out of 5 paper notes gets disposed of every year after getting soiled or defaced.
Those counterfeit notes are sent separately to the treasury, to the local treasury or to the cash management system of the bank. They are accounted for separately, and then there is a process of destruction also. So at each and every stage, there is man force and the workforce involved in this. So the more the counterfeit, the more the cost for the banks also.
The RBI has planned a trial pilot project for plastic or polymer currency notes in order to increase the shelf life of notes. But the onus needs to be shared by citizens as well. Kriti Mishra, Rajya Sabha TV.
Time now for some international news, and German MPs have voted in favour of starting negotiations on Greece's bailout deal. Now, this is just a day after the European Central Bank raised the level of emergency funding for Greece. The bailout deal is expected to pass in the German parliament despite an opposition.
After the twin lifeline rewards for Greece from the Eurozone, the German parliament has backed negotiations for a third Greece bailout, which is worth 86 billion euros. Earlier, opening the debate, German Chancellor Angela Merkel has warned of chaos if deputies did not back the plan.
Es ist offenkundig. Das Ergebnis war ein Scherbenhaufen. Mit ihm war zwischen Griechenland und den anderen Mitgliedern in der Eurogruppe die wichtigste Währung des Miteinanders, auch des Miteinanders von Staaten.
Meanwhile, the IMF chief Christine Lagarde said that they could participate in a complete package to put the Greek economy back on track and make its debt sustainable so that it gets funding from financial markets. French finance minister has ruled out any write-off of Greek loan.
Y compris moi, parce que c'était une atteinte à l'intérêt de nos citoyens contribuables, c'était de faire diminuer la valeur de la dette. Voilà, supprimer de la dette. Ça n'était pas possible. Mais depuis des semaines, nous avons mis sur la table le fait qu'il serait...
Greece embattled Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras held a cabinet meeting on Thursday amid speculations that he will soon announce a government reshuffle. He faced a major revolt from the left wing of his governing Syriza party during a vote on Eurozone bailout negotiations on Wednesday. Meanwhile, the Greek Deputy Finance Minister said that all Greek banks will reopen by next Monday. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
On to the United States now, where another domestic terror attack in the U.S., 5 people were left dead, including the suspected terrorist in Tennessee. Officials say it's too early to speculate on the motive, but U.S. law enforcement authorities are increasingly concerned about the threat posed by such lone attackers. President Barack Obama assured a prompt investigation into the shootings.
In a freak incident in Tennessee, US, a gunman shot down 4 Marines and injured several others in a rampage at 2 US Navy buildings on Thursday morning. The suspect, Mohammed Yusuf Abdulaziz, believed to have acted alone, opened fire at the 2 facilities in Chattanooga. No injuries were reported from the military center on Lee Highway, the first scene of accident. Then the accused drove off to the Naval Research Center, gunning down 4 Marines before being shot dead himself.
We do know that we have 4 individuals who were killed, who are victims. We know that the shooter was killed at the scene as well. Also, 1 Chattanooga police officer was shot in the ankle and has been treated very well at Erlanger, as well as there were some other individuals who were shot and have also been treated.
There were 2 separate locations. Both of them were military facilities, both Naval Reserve facilities here in Chattanooga. We believe the one over on Lee Highway occurred first, and then, and I believe this is probably public record, Chattanooga PD began pursuit of the individual, and it ended at the 2nd naval facility.
Armed policemen were seen raiding the house of the suspect, but there are little details on the motive of the killings. Officials described as yet another brazen and brutal act of domestic terrorism. In memory of the brave Marines, US President Barack Obama offered condolences, saying it was a heartbreaking attack on the individuals who have served the country with great valor. He promised a thorough and prompt investigation into the incidents.
We take all shootings very seriously. Obviously, when you have an attack on a U.S. military facility, then we have to make sure that we have all the information necessary to make an assessment in terms of how this attack took place and what further precautions we can take in the future. But in the meantime, I'd ask all Americans to pray for the families who are grief-stricken at this point. And I want everybody to understand that we will be thorough and prompt in figuring out exactly what happened.
Domestic gun violence in the US has been a cause of concern with the rising number of incidents of a similar fashion in the last year. Lockdowns had been put in place at businesses, a college and other facilities near the recent shooting sites in Tennessee, but a lot more needs to be done to prevent such threats in future. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
That's all from us. Goodbye.